for keeping you waiting. You're very welcome to Europe House. I'm delighted to see some of you here in person. You're very welcome to today's press conference with Vice President Maroš Šefčovič following the meetings of the Partnership Council and of the Joint Committee that took place earlier this morning. I'll hand the floor over now to the Vice President, but just beforehand to remind you, given that we are in a physical press conference, to please keep your masks on at all times, but when you're asking questions, you can, of course, take them off. So with that, over to you, Vice President.
Thank you. So good afternoon and warm welcome to Europe House to all of you. We had very important meetings today with the United Kingdom, and let me begin by thanking David Frost for hosting them both here in London. This is the first time the European Union and the United Kingdom met in the context of the Partnership Council under the Trade and Cooperation Agreement. And it was already the 8th meeting of the Joint Committee. And I will start with the Joint Committee, where we discussed two issues that are at the core of withdrawal agreement and are, in fact, the necessary foundation of any solid relationship between the EU and the UK. The implementation of the protocol on Ireland, Northern Ireland, and the issue of citizens' rights. On the issue of citizens, the deadline of 30th of June for residence application by the EU citizens in the UK and the UK citizens in the EU is fast approaching. Our citizens must have legal certainty as to whether they are covered or not by the withdrawal agreement. We agreed to work together to ensure that this is the case. I also raised the very sensitive issue of the detention of EU citizens at the UK border. I sought reassurances from Lord Frost that all outstanding issues will be solved swiftly. Turning to the protocol on Ireland, Northern Ireland, the EU repeated today its unwavering commitment to the Good Friday Belfast Agreement. For this, the protocol needs to be implemented. The UK agreed to the protocol as being the best solution after 4 years of intensive negotiations to address the unique situation on the island of Ireland and the challenges created by Brexit and the UK's choice to leave the EU single market and customs union. The EU and the UK agreed that the protocol was the only way to protect the Good Friday Belfast Agreement in all its parts. Over the past years, the EU has engaged creatively and tirelessly to find solutions that would provide businesses and people in Northern Ireland with stability, minimise the inevitable disruption caused by Brexit, and protect the EU's single market and Ireland's place in it, the latter being unconditional. Lately, in December last year, we agreed to a range of solutions with the UK, including grace periods for certain products or flexibilities regarding documentation because the UK was not technically ready to implement the protocol for its entry into force. Since then, we continued working on permanent solutions where feasible. For example, on the continued supply of medicine to Northern Ireland, something I personally take very seriously, especially in this time of pandemic. And here we stand ready to go and amend our own laws to ensure the supply. I can also mention guide dogs, VAT on second-hand cars, or certain flexibility regarding the movement of livestock between Great Britain and Northern Ireland, or TRQ on steel, and many other examples. But we cannot undo the core of the protocol. The SPS controls have to be performed between GB and Northern Ireland, since this is a necessary condition to ensure the absence of controls between Northern Ireland and Ireland. This element has been discussed at length with the UK before agreeing on the protocol. And in this context, the EU agreed exceptionally to subcontract the controls of goods entering its single market to a third country, the United Kingdom. The UK has to abide by its legal obligations and perform these controls. Unfortunately, there are still numerous and fundamental gaps in the UK's implementation of our agreement. These gaps need to be filled by mutually agreed compliance path with concrete deadlines and milestones for the UK to fulfill its existing obligations. There is no other way around this. As you know, the name of protocol is the Protocol on Ireland and Northern Ireland. I saw some rumors in the press today about Ireland, and I want to clarify something. We have always shown solidarity with Ireland, and we will continue to stand by Ireland, which is the member state most affected by Brexit. This is a matter between the EU and the UK, not between the EU and Ireland. We have always said that the EU's objective is to preserve the Good Friday Belfast Agreement as well as the integrity of the single market, including Ireland's place in it. Today, I can say we are at the crossroads in our relationship with the UK. Trust, which should be at the heart of every partnership, needs to be restored. That is the EU approach and the EU preference. If the UK were to take further unilateral action over the coming weeks, the EU will not be shy in reacting swiftly, firmly and resolutely to ensure that the UK abides by its international law obligations. Pacta sunt servanda. I will continue to speak regularly to businesses, civil society and politicians in Northern Ireland to hear from them about their experience. I believe we all have a duty in Brussels, London and Belfast to focus on politics that unites rather than divides. And I am calling on the UK government to work together on this. And I am positive we can find solutions. Where there is a will, there is always a way. On Partnership Council. The European Union and United Kingdom launched the work of the Partnership Council under the Trade and Cooperation Agreement today. As you all know, the full implementation of the withdrawal agreement is a prerequisite for a close, solid relationship based on trust. The implementation of the TCA will actually be equally, if not more important, than its negotiation. Therefore, I am glad that we agreed today on an indicative timetable for the upcoming meetings of various joint committees established under this agreement. At the same time, I raised some of the issues that have arisen in recent months, notably fisheries, where we agreed that our experts would meet before August to ensure that the TCA is fully respected. We need stability for our fisheries sector under the new arrangements. We have already seen some problems around Jersey, and we don't want to see that repeated. Behind every license not issued by the UK is the fisherman or fisherwoman and their family and livelihoods. I also stated clearly that we will not accept discrimination between EU citizens on long-term visa fees. We have requested the UK to extend the visa fee reduction to the 5 member states currently excluded. Let there be no doubt, the EU wants to build a strategic, enduring and mutually beneficial partnership with the United Kingdom. And the TCA is the basis for this partnership. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vice President. We have time for your questions. Please forgive me in advance if I don't know all of your names just yet. Yes, please. Yeah, there's a microphone coming. Should be no.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Jason Groves from the Daily Mail. Vice President, you talk about a retaliatory action if there's more unilateral steps. Can you spell out what that might look like? And given that you did very little when the UK took unilateral action earlier in the year, aren't people entitled to think that this may just be more empty threats?
Thank you very much for this question. I think that what we are demonstrating here, it's a very constructive approach and I would say enormous patience on the side of the European Union and all the member states and the institutions. As you know, we always prefer the negotiations, we always prefer finding the good solutions, and we clearly demonstrated that we can do that. I was personally negotiating all grace periods in December with Lord Frost's predecessor. And at that time, I was asking explicitly these grace periods for March, for June, for the end of the year. Are they fine? Will you manage? Do you have enough time? And we've been reassured that yes. And we even saw the statement of UK government published on Number 10 website that they are absolutely okay with it. So therefore, we've been so surprised when the first batch of unilateral actions came. We started the legal action. As you know, again, we tried to solve it before it ends up in court by additional flexibilities, by looking for the solutions, and this is what we are ready to do. But of course, as you would understand, the fact that I mentioned that we are at the crossroads, it means that our patience really is wearing very, very thin. And therefore, we have to assess all options we have at our disposal. I was talking about the legal action. I was talking about the arbitration. And, of course, I'm talking about the cross-retaliation. We do not want this to happen. Therefore, I came here. Therefore, we had very intense debate this morning and also yesterday evening with the Lord Frost, because I believe that there are possible solutions. One of them, which would, I think, take care of 80% of our troubles, and I'm talking now about SPS checks, is on the table. It's offered by us. This is so-called Swiss-type SPS agreement, which would solve the problem just like that. I think we can really do that in a couple of weeks, and 80% of the checks and controls will simply not be necessary anymore. But I'm kind of struck that here the ideology prevails over what is good and important for the people of Northern Ireland. And I'm not just saying it because it suits me. I'm actually talking to the business stakeholders in Northern Ireland. I'm talking to the leaders of the political parties. We had a joint outreach with Lord Frost just this Monday, and none of them to whom we will talk said that they have something against this type of SPS alignment agreement. So I really don't understand. It's very difficult for us to grasp why we are not doing it, if that can solve all our problems. What we would hear from our British partners, that they would like to go for risk-based, equivalence type of the agreement. And again, I can tell you we did it in the past, so we know exactly what it means. We have such agreement, for example, with New Zealand, and then later on, then we'll point you to the website where we will publish the very clear comparison, what it means from the point of view of checks. If we are talking about the so-called equivalence, it doesn't mean there will be no checks. There is a lot of checks. And therefore, I don't understand why we spend so much time on something which we tried before. We know how it works, and we know that it will not solve the problem of Northern Ireland. We are offering something which is tangible, credible, easy to do, and which could be accomplished very quickly. So that's a little bit where we spent most of the time this morning discussing this issue. Of course, we will continue to talk. And I hope, in the end, for the sake of people of Northern Ireland, that we will find a good solution to this problem.
Go back to Tom, and then I can take some more questions from this side of the room, please.
Thanks. Tom Newton-Dunn from Times Radio. Can I just ask you to confirm what you mean by cross-retaliation in your answer there? You mean trade tariffs. That is a legal option available to you. Can you just confirm that? And secondly, if British sausages aren't going to kill British people, why don't you trust the British government that they won't kill Europeans? Why don't you trust their idea of equivalence?
Yeah, if it comes to the cross-retaliation, of course, I came here to find a solution, so I didn't bring the menu of what should be our cross-retaliatory sections. But if you look through the agreement, I think it's pretty obvious. It could be the suspension of the cooperation in certain sectors. Of course, it could mean that if you continue to have persistent problems of, let's say, bad faith implementation of the deals which we have signed. Also, the quota tariffs could come into the place, but all these measures being put into the TCA because we just wanted to be sure, and I have to say from both sides, there was joint agreement that if something goes wrong, if you don't live up to the, let's say, expectations or up to the agreement which we have signed, then there are also cross-retaliatory measures which we all hoped, and when I saw that we have this Christmas Eve agreement, thought we would never ever even consider. So now I'm very sorry that we are at this situation, and therefore also through you I would appeal to the UK government. Let's work together and solve this very, very important issue. When I'm coming back to my outreach with the Northern Irish business stakeholders, they're telling us that they see opportunity in the protocol, that they understand that what a unique opportunity and advantage it is that you can actually operate on both markets, on the biggest market, the European one, and on the UK internal market. They see, interest of the business people. They have already a list of projects which would be, proposed and start to be implemented in Northern Ireland. And I thought, to be quite honest, when we had this discussion in December, that by now we would be organizing trade delegations coming to Northern Ireland to develop the distribution hubs, supply chains, and simply really bring new growth, jobs, and new opportunities to Northern Ireland. That was at least the intention as we have seen it. So, and what you hear from the business people, telling us, please, you politicians, fix this problem, solve it. And I totally agree with them. Let's solve it. And we have the agreement, we have the protocol for that, which we just signed a year and a half ago, and therefore I think we should really do that. And if it comes, to the SPS controls, I think we've been having the same regulation, the same standards for several decades with the UK. But where is the guarantee that there will be no divergence of these standards? At least that's what we hear from our UK colleagues. And here, of course, we are talking about the public health. We are talking about the health of the animal. This is probably the most sensitive area of SPS legislation. Therefore, we are so much attached to it, and we informed the UK at multiple occasions. The last year, I was reinforcing the message in December. Do you really want to do it like this? Do you really insist that it should be like that? And now we are at this situation. Then it was, okay, give us the 6 months. In the meantime, we will organize ourselves that it will be no problem after that. And here we have this discussion again. So that's the best answer I can give to you.
The lady at the back beside the Irish flag. Vicky, I think it is.
Vicky Young, BBC News. You've said your patience is wearing very, very thin. You've already launched legal action. How soon would you consider starting the next step?
I think I was coming here with a hope for a breakthrough, that we would kind of see the progress in resolving all these outstanding issues. I think it was good to have this very honest, frank discussions with Lord Frost. And the Partnership Council and the Joint Committee are done in the video presence of all EU institutions and all EU member states. So I think that was very good to kind of clear the air and put our positions very, very clearly on the table. And I also was very honest with David, and I told him that his response, be it to our letter of the formal notice, which is the first stage of the legal action, or the answer to my political letter, which is first step to the arbitration, simply been not satisfactory. We haven't seen any kind of response to our legal concerns, to our legal worries. We got a response in the form of a political statement, and of course now we have to consider our future steps. So the next step would be, as you know it from the EU legislation, the so-called reasoned opinion. Before the first case would end up in the European Court of Justice, which could happen already in early autumn. And of course, on the second case, use of arbitration, there of course we have to reflect how to proceed. But once again, what I'm saying is, I mean, it's not too late. Let's correct the path. Let's focus on what unites us, and I'm sure that there are many more things which we have in common: the close allies, close neighbors, democracies, than what divides us, and that would be definitely our preference.
Yes, please.
Ahead of Joe Biden's meeting with Boris Johnson tomorrow, the British government has been arguing that it's actually the implementation of the protocol which is threatening the peace process in Northern Ireland and undermining the basis of the Good Friday Belfast Agreement. What would you say to the American administration in response to that?
I think that American administration, and I have to say that US Congress as well, are following this issue very, very closely. I wouldn't hide that there was big interest in this issue also in US Congress, and I was approached by several congressmen and senators about providing them more details, what the situation is, how is it evolving, and I fully understand that, because we know how instrumental the United States been when Good Friday Belfast Agreement was negotiated. I'm a diplomat by profession, so I was at that time glued to the TV screen just to see how the negotiations are going and how all been happy that we arrived at the Good Friday Belfast Agreement conclusion. And because it's so important, and I'm sure that you know that EU was standing by the peace process in Northern Ireland from the beginning, politically, economically, financially, through different programs. And of course, I would be much happier if today, with David and maybe Simon Coveney, we can be on the podium and announce that we are going to start the second Peace Path program, because we all allocated almost 1 billion euros together to promote peace and intercommunal dialogues and a good infrastructural programs. So, after having said all that, what I would say here is that we've been exploring all possibilities, how to best minimize the consequences of Brexit for the island of Ireland, and the best joint solution was, let's go for the protocol. And I think that, of course, all big players are following very closely how the United Kingdom respects its international obligations. You know, we signed the international agreement, it's ratified, it enters, of course, international law, and suddenly you have several breaches of your international commitments. And I don't think that, that this was something which was in the past somehow associated with the UK, because the United Kingdom was always very proud of its tradition to respect the rules, respect the international agreement, and therefore everybody is surprised, and therefore we are getting the phone calls from United States. So what I was telling to our American counterpart is, for us, the peace is of paramount, absolute priority, and we are ready to do whatever it takes to make sure that we would be positive, active player in that regard. But we have to stick to what we agreed, because we agreed that the best solution is the implementation of the protocol. And we are ready to explore all possibilities within the protocol, within the withdrawal agreement, but we cannot renegotiate it because we just agreed upon it just, 18 months ago.
Pippa, please.
Pippa Carrera from the Daily Mirror. Given the UK's political position on the protocol, Do you anticipate any movement in the coming days at the G7 summit, possibly an intervention from Joe Biden, that could help facilitate the breakthrough that you're looking for?
Of course, I cannot speak on behalf of U.S. President. What I can say is that that U.S. administration and U.S. Congress are following this matter very closely. They are very interested in that, and I know that from my personal contacts with several representatives. I'm sure that the G7, also the European leaders, would raise this issue, because I think that what we should be focusing on right now, it should be the economic recovery, how to restart the economy in this hopefully post-COVID period, and how to focus on what is, I think, in our interest to form and forge this new strategic partnership between EU and the UK. And instead of that, I mean, we have these very difficult meetings, as we had yesterday and today, and therefore I hope that after listening to these discussions, and I hope that there will be exchange on this among the top global leaders on this issue, that we can come back together with David and work on solutions which would be permanent, which would be feasible, which would be in line with the agreements which have been signed, and which would work for the people of Northern Ireland. That's our wish.
Lisa, next please.
Yes.
Lisa O'Carroll from The Guardian. Just to come back to the issues raised by some of the previous questioners, we've got a deadline of the 30th of June coming up. The UK have indicated that they may take unilateral action. It's just a number of weeks. Can you talk us through what will happen if they do take unilateral action on the 30th of June? Can you introduce cross-retaliation, tariffs on quotas, reduce the quotas, etc.? Can you talk us through that?
Of course, this type of decisions are not taken lightly, and that would definitely be not the case at this occasion as well. And therefore, we discussed it at great length this morning, and I was clearly advising against further unilateral action, and I was explaining what our steps would be, because I think in this case we need the clarity, transparency, and also very good understanding on the UK side where we are coming from and what is the reasoning behind our argumentation. So we do not have the timetable or a set of measures, because we still believe that we can find the solution. But just to give you one, I think, quite important argument when we are talking about the push for additional flexibilities from the UK side. Why is it so difficult for us? It's so difficult for us because we do not have the eyes on or ears if it comes to the BCPs or this border checkpoints in Northern Ireland. We agreed and signed the withdrawal agreement and protocol in February of the last year. I had my first meeting with Chancellor Gove, I believe it was March or April, when I was asking them, guys, are you ready for the 1st of January? Because it would be massive change. It's the first time in the history of the EU where we actually are asking third country, you guys, to implement the checks, the controls, and to make sure that the EU law is applied. Will you be ready by then? I said, it will be difficult. We'll do our best. We've got a so-called open book approach, where the UK side was informing us about how the construction works is progressing, how the people will be hired, how they will be trained, how the IT systems will be built. And this is how we managed to get to the December with this grace period. And again, with this grace period, there have been coming also additional obligations, like, okay, if you are sending the sausages or meat products to the Northern Ireland, it's a very easy solution. You just put the sticker on it for Northern Ireland only. And you will give us, and we agreed on simplified export health certificate. Do you think that at least one of these things has been materialized? None. Nothing was done. So for us, it's very difficult. We do not have, access to the IT system, so we do not know what is happening on the border. We have really minimal presence there. So also the number of checks is minimal. And, we do not have the tracing, the labeling, and all the things which have been promised to us that they will be done. So therefore, it's very difficult, and this is what I explained to David, that he has to look at it also from this angle.
Okay, we want to be able to answer all of your questions, but I am aware that a lot of you have a train to catch to Cornwall. So if you don't mind, I'll group some of your questions, and then if you have other individual questions, we also, yes, please.
Sam Coates, Sky News. Two things. Lord Frost says that he wants to change the implementation of the protocol rather than junk it or rewrite it. Do you believe him? Does the EU believe him? And secondly, do you understand why some people really struggle with the idea that the EU single market is genuinely at risk because there aren't intensive checks on mince meat going from Britain to Northern Ireland supermarkets? Don't the risks to stability in Northern Ireland, which you say you find are paramount, outweigh the risks to the single market here?
Adam, next, please. Sam,
Hi, Adam Payne from Politics Home. Vice President Šefčovič, in your mind, is there a deadline by which the UK and the EU must make substantive progress on all the major outstanding issues in these talks, like SBS? And if the UK does take more unilateral action, could these joint committee talks be at peril? Could they collapse?
Can you repeat the last part of your question?
If the UK does take more unilateral action, could the joint committee talks collapse?
Alex, the last one, and then give the floor back to you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Vice President, Alex Morales from Bloomberg News. You talked about the suspension of cooperation in certain sectors. Is retaliation in the area of financial services one of the levers that the EU is willing to pull if the UK continues to violate the protocol on its eyes?
Thank you. Thank you very much for all the questions, the gentleman from the Sky News. You know, we go way back with David when we've been working in our both diplomatic capacities. He was advising the time Prime Minister on financial perspective. I was representing my country, Slovakia, and we've been working very well together at that time. And I think that we have that relationship between us where we are very frank, very honest, and these are not easy discussions. I do not hide it. We agreed to have this hotline. We are frequently calling to each other, and I think that we've been entrusted by a very important role to forge new EU-UK relationship. That's how we see it, and therefore I believe in the best intentions of David Frost. If it comes to the intensity of the checks, I know that our UK partners are kind of referring to different numbers, comparison with Rotterdam, and to all things which simply, as we look at them, are misleading. First and foremost, because we do not have access to the IT system, so we really don't know. And if it comes to physical checks, I mean, it's simply not comparable. What is the level of checks in Rotterdam or in Northern Ireland? And because we don't know what's actually happening at the border, therefore there is the anxiety that the public health is at risk, and therefore we insist that this should be corrected and the checks should be done properly. But I hope that by now, as we discussed it in December, there will be adequate number of people, IT in place, well-trained personnel working very well and closely together with the EU experts on the ground, and everything would be much more smoother and much more faster. But unfortunately, we are not there yet. Adam was asking about the deadline in the case of further unilateral actions. I didn't come here to put any ultimatums to our UK friends. I was just telling them, guys, if you go down that path, I mean, this is what will happen. We hope to avoid it. We want to discuss it. We want to be very, very clear and honest about how we see the current situation, and we still hope that we can work it out. Therefore I'm here, and therefore we had this very intense discussion. And about the different possibilities. As I said, the TCA is quite clear on what can be done with the retaliatory measures. It's, as I said, it's suspension of the trade part, services part, or other measures. But I wouldn't specify them right now. We really do not have the menu. We didn't come here to tell them, we are going to do this and that precisely. We just told them that there is such a possibility. Let's avoid this.
You're talking the language of trade. When it comes to Northern Ireland, there is much more at stake than just trade. Are you really willing to put peace in Northern Ireland at risk over checks on meat?
Very much. This gentleman.
Thanks. Oliver Wright from The Times. Just a clarification. Are there any circumstances in which the EU would agree on chilled meats to extend the deadline on the 30th of June to give more time for the talks to work, or is that a hard deadline? Grace period.
I'll take one more question. James.
Thank you. Vice President, you've talked about the need to build trust. Do you personally trust Lord Frost, who began these unilateral actions? Wouldn't you rather have Michael Gove back? Thank you.
Thank you very much for a very interesting questions. I put it this way. I mean, the first, the question to Paul, as you know, EU is a peace project, and peace for us is of, as I said, paramount importance, and we have absolute commitment. We have absolute commitment to peace. Therefore, we went at unprecedented great length to agree that the checks will be done by the UK authorities in the Northern Ireland. Therefore, we really developed this absolutely unique approach how to avoid the hard border on the island of Ireland, how to facilitate all that process. And I think also clearly showed enormous trust to the UK government and UK authorities that they will do this check on behalf of the EU. I don't know what more we could have done. And clearly, I mean, this is, I would say, a very good question, what you are asking, because what we are offering is a solution. Let's put SPS, Swiss type agreement in place. In a couple of weeks, it's solved. There are 80% less checks. Everybody is happy. If the UK would have possibility, which I understand, that they would have some kind of massive trade agreement being signed, we put on the table another, I think, very unusual flexibility. Let's do it on temporary basis. Let's do it on temporary basis. You tell us, okay, we have a big, trade agreement coming. We know that usually it takes years to negotiate. So you will tell us half a year before this new agreement comes into place that you want to change, the SPS standard. We'll say, fine. So then we reintroduce the checks, but we would breach over the current very sensitive period. There I agree with you, and as I told you, I'm talking to the leaders in Northern Ireland, and I'm fully conscious of how sensitive the situation is. We would use the time for building the infrastructure, for training the personnel, putting the IT systems in place, and simply be prepared for that eventuality down the road. But it would be done in quiet, not so, I would say, politically sensitive time, and I think it would take a lot of that current tension which is there out of equation, which I think would be the best solution. So therefore, I mean, you're offering very quick negotiations, temporary basis, and do it now. So, and it's very difficult for us that why this is rejected. On top of it, when I know that at least to everyone to whom I spoke in Northern Ireland so far, everyone said it's a best possible solution. So let's go for it. So that's where we are, where I'm coming from, and on the chilled meats, I think it's very difficult for me to give you the answer on that right now, because as the things stand and as nothing what came as a part of the deal from December was respected until now. I'm talking about the labeling, tracing, and all the guarantees which been promised to us. It's very difficult for us to say, okay, let's go for the extension, because simply there is a fear that we are not protecting the public health, integrity of the single market, and if something wrong happen, that we might have the public health issue in the EU single market. So that's why we are, I would say, so careful about this issue. And James was referring to, about building the trust. I think I said it publicly, and I told it to David Frost, that to trigger unilateral actions several hours before our first phone call was not the best way how to start our new relationship, I would say. Yeah? But since that, I have to say that we are communicating a lot. Of course, we have a lot of diverging views. I think we are both very courteous to each other. We, I think, understand that each one of us has a very difficult job to do, and that we are trying to do the best. And of course, I'm very much solution-driven. I want to have the good results in the end, and I'm ready to do the maximum. And as I said, I'm ready to have very good and fruitful relationship with David.
Okay, I'll try to do one last big round. George first, and then Sean, and then David.
Yeah, George Parker from the Financial Times. There have been some suggestions that the decisions that you take or don't take in the next few weeks could contribute to violence on the ground in Northern Ireland. I just wonder whether you drew a link between the discussions you're having and the situation on the ground, and indeed whether you think the British side may be even using the threat of violence as some sort of negotiating tool.
Sean next, please.
Thank you. Sean Whelan from RTE Irish Television. Just asking you to clarify one of your comments earlier about that Politico article this morning. Is the European Commission making any kind of plans or preparations to check goods moving from Ireland into mainland Europe at French, Dutch, Belgian border, for example?
Romley Weeks, ITV News. Do you think that the British government signed up to this agreement in bad faith, hoping to change the bits that they didn't like further down the line? And back on President Biden, are you hopeful that there's anything that he can do to move the dial on this standoff?
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, George. In reference to the violence, what I was trying to achieve over the last weeks and months, and also last 2 days in London, was to do our utmost to uphold the peace in Northern Ireland, to come up with a solution which contribute to calming down the situation. As I said, all that effort which we put on the table to guarantee the supply of medicine to Northern Ireland, despite the fact that for us it would be very heavy lifting. We will need to change the legislation for that. But we understand it's very sensitive, it's important. We are in, let's hope, post-COVID times, but we need to be ready for the autumn, for the winter. So we are really doing an enormous step here. Then I was referring to several other steps, be it on a VIT, be it on steel, be it on assistant dogs, be it on the different kind of, other areas which we covered. And as I said, we will just simply, for the sake of transparency, put it on the website, so it's for all you to judge that, what we already put on the table, despite the fact that we still do not have the, I would say, the basic prerequisite of the agreement in place, like IT systems and facilities and people on the ground. So, and we did all that because we want to contribute to peace. We know that situation is very, very fragile, and for us it's very important. Therefore, I hope that we will we also in these difficult circumstances, and maybe even more of it, we will find the solution with the UK on what would be the best and fastest way to resolve it. If it comes to the political article, the article is simply not true, or the information in that articles are not true. And as I said in my introductory remarks, we are all in the EU, and I have the right to talk in this case on behalf of the whole EU, because I represent also the member states. We clearly know that Ireland is most affected member state by Brexit. And until now, we showed the utmost solidarity to Ireland, and Ireland showed utmost solidarity to the rest of the European Union and to Northern Ireland. And we, of course, are going we are also going to continue like that. And therefore, we are working very, very closely with Ireland, and I think that also the trust, the level of cooperation is unprecedented, and it will definitely be the case in the future. So we are simply going to stand by our member state, on top of it most affected by Brexit. And if it comes to the last question, I think it was about signing the agreement in a bad faith. I wouldn't say it like that. I think that when the agreement was being negotiated, it might be that our British partners couldn't fully estimate that what would be the consequences of the Brexit they have chosen. What it would mean to leave the single market, customs union, how complex it would be for businesses, for the government, for IT systems, for the training of personnel. And now I would say gradually more and more things are coming to the table. We see it, to be quite honest, also in our discussion with David. Every time we meet, there are new topics coming to the table. Some of them which have been foreseen, some of them which have been unforeseen. Like I mentioned the TRQ or steel and all the things which are kind of piling up around that issue. So I think that probably that was the reason. But nevertheless, I think if we would see what I was asking for since beginning of the year, clear roadmap, when the IT systems will be up and running, when the professional personnel will be trained, when we will see how the UK is planning to implement the withdrawal agreement and the protocol, it would be very reassuring for us. It would create the political space for discussing about, further flexibilities or discussing about other issues. But we haven't received that. We've been trying to work on the roadmap. We didn't arrive to the juncture where we can say, yeah, here we have now the clear plan how the withdrawal agreement or protocol would be implemented, and therefore I think we just need to focus on it and work on it. So hopefully we will see the clear ideas how the United Kingdom is going to implement the agreements which have been signed a year and a half ago.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll take one final round and then we'll call it a day. Christina, please, and then if anybody else wants a quick question.
Hi, thank you. Mr. Vice President, you said the information in the Politico article is simply not true. The article is based on private and informal conversations. Are you saying you're not aware of any of these conversations taking place? Could you clarify which bits of the article you think are not true? And on the same issue, would you completely rule out this idea ever coming to pass? Thank you.
Does anybody else have any other questions? Otherwise, yes, you've already had a question. Don't be greedy. Okay, Vice President.
Okay, the question of Christina. I think I can only repeat what I have said. I mean, what we are clearly focusing on here is how to make the protocol work, how to protect the integrity of the single market, and of course, how to make sure that Ireland, as it is, was and will be the the part of the single market. So we are not considering any of these eventualities, because we are focusing on how to make sure that the integrity of the single market is clearly upheld and the agreements which we sign are fully implemented.
Thank you very much, Vice President. It's now concluded.
Thank you very much for all the questions. Thank you.
Thanks very much.